I wanted to make a quick video before I pop off to bed from my new studio. Not exactly a studio, actually, it's my younger daughter's previous bedroom. She's moved to another room and freeing up this 4.5 mat bedroom, which is not big enough to swing a cat. Anyway, I've got a bit of space and a bit of time, and what I've been trying to do is read 100 books this year, which means reading about 8 or 9 books every month, and so far so good. So I just wanted to kind of do a video diary to keep myself on the straight and narrow, and to let you know about how my books have been going. You know, every month I am going to post a picture of the books that I plan to read, and then I review them on Goodreads, and then I'll just give a quick roundup here for people who don't want to read my reviews. You get much more detail there, anyway, it's just something I wanted to do, to experiment with, to give you some content that might be of interest to you and might be of interest to me. Anyway, I'll shut up now. Oh, I won't shut up. I'll stop doing meta analysing myself and just talk about some of the books that I read this January, so January 2018. First book I started with was Tokyo 7 Roses, as you can see, by Hisashi Inoue. Very good. This is the second volume. It's a 2-volume, quite thick. It's about 500 pages in total. Story of ordinary folk surviving in post-war Tokyo. It's a sort of comedy, but it's bittersweet as well. It's a sort of family drama, and there's a sort of a detective story in there. Well, not detective, a sort of mystery going on as well. In the background, the Japanese are trying to defend the Japanese language from the dastardly Americans who are one of the Americans who has a crazy idea to get rid of kanji. That's the dastardly plot that our ordinary Japanese folk will defend. It's quite funny. Very good. I give it 5 out of 5. That's that one. The second book I read, let me plonk this down somewhere over here. This one, A Robe of Feathers and Other Stories by Teresa Matsura. Very, very good. It's written by an American. I was fortunate to meet her at the Tokyo Writers Doodah. Very good book. You would think it was written by a Japanese person, but has the advantage of being written by a native English speaker, so it's really good. Read the review to read more about that. I'm just hoping that she writes a novel, because I think if she does, it could really knock the ball out of the court or something for her. I think she could be really the next big thing, if she wants to be. There's that. Okay. What else? Next I read this one, which is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which is a Holocaust story, fable, it's called. I thought it was really good, and then I read some reviews by Holocaust survivors, or Auschwitz survivors, that sort of knocked it as being too childish, and that made me think, well, maybe it's only 4 stars. But looking back on it, I think it is a 5-star. It's maybe for younger readers, but it's still pretty powerful. Very well constructed story, so I enjoyed it. Very good, that one. Next up, then I read The World at Night, really evocative espionage thriller set in occupied Paris. What to say about it? Evocative. The plot's a bit dragging maybe, but it's, I visited Paris recently this summer, and it really came alive, and I thought, wow, yeah, I could really, it transports you, so very good. I'm going to read another one of his books this month. Then, what else did I read? Then I read, let me see, what did I read? I read this one, which is Augusto de Angelis. I was probably massacring his name. The Hotel of the 3 Roses. The Tokyo 7 Roses was the good one. This one, This one, frankly, was a bit tedious. It's written in the 1930s, 35 or 36. And it's a Agatha Christie style thing set in an Italian hotel. It didn't have much of an Italian flavour to it. The best thing about it is the author is quite an interesting character. I talk about that in the Goodreads review, but he was kicked to death by a fascist thug in the streets in 1944. So his true life was a lot more interesting and tragic than his fiction. There you go. Then I read a more modern Italian crime fiction. This is The Shape of Water, the first Inspector Montalbano mystery set in Sicily. Really good. I suppose maybe in the future you might look back at these books and say, oh, they're just as unrealistic as Agatha Christie's stuff, but it's still fresh enough that it seems realistic, and the characters are great, and the chief inspector is quite prepared to destroy evidence if it serves the greater interests of justice. Quite interesting and very enjoyable. So there's that. Two more books that I haven't finished yet, and as I record this, it's January 30th, so I've got 2 days to finish these to keep my average up to 9 books. We'll see how I do. Prisoners of Geography by Tim Marshall. I'm enjoying this. I've only read 30 pages of it, the chapter on Russia. Not particularly deep, but pretty good. So there's a roundup of things that, trying to understand what's going on in the world and how it's not quite as mysterious and radically different than we might think. A lot of it is shaped by geography and geopolitics and all that stuff, which is a fancy way of saying is who's got the oil and who's got the mountains. And he's managed to make it into quite a thick book. No, I'm enjoying it, and I want to see what he has to say about Europe and Japan, which are of particular interest to me. So there's that. What else? Oh, and I'm listening to Ta-Nehisi Coates' 8 Years in Power, which is really good. About 2/3 of the way through that. The best thing about it is he talks about how he came up with the different essays for the Atlantic, where he published his essays. But I really can't say much more about it yet. I haven't completely decided how I feel about Ta-Nehisi Coates, other than he is a damn good writer. Whether I agree with his politics or not, I'm not sure. Watch this space. And I read one more this month, which is Raymond Chandler's The Simple Art of Murder, which is a short story collection. Pretty good, but what was brilliant was his description, was his essay, which is called The Simple Art of Murder, which I'm sure everybody who writes crime fiction has read. I have now. And I just wanted to point out the last 3 paragraphs are absolutely just sum up what the hero of a detective story or any kind of adventure story should be, and it's still true today. And if I may read to you, I'll just read you some of this because it's so apt. Okay, well, it jumped out at me anyway. Okay, here's Raymond Chandler talking about what makes a hero in detective fiction. In everything that can be called art, there is a quality of redemption. It may be pure tragedy. If it is high tragedy, and it may be pity and irony, and it may be the raucous laughter of the strong man. But down these mean streets a man must go who is not himself mean, who is neither tarnished nor afraid. The detective in this kind of story must be such a man. He is the hero. He is everything. He must be a complete man and a common man, and yet an unusual man. He must be, to use a rather weathered phrase, a man of honour, by instinct, by inevitability. Without thought of it, and certainly without saying it, he must be the best man in his world, and a good enough man for any world. I do not care much about his private life. He is neither a eunuch nor a satyr. I think he might seduce a duchess, and I am quite sure he would not spoil a virgin. If he is a man of honour in one thing, he is that in all things. He is a relatively poor man, or he would not be a detective at all. He is a common man, or he could not go among common people. He has a sense of character, or he would not know his job. He will take no man's money dishonestly, and no man's insolence without a due and dispassionate revenge. He is a lonely man, and his pride is that you will treat him as a proud man, or be very sorry you ever saw him. He talks as the man of his age talks, that is, with rude wit, a lively sense of the grotesque, a disgust for sham, and a contempt for pettiness. The story is this man's adventure in search of a hidden truth, and it would be no adventure if it did not happen to a man fit for adventure. He has a range of awareness that startles you, but it belongs to him by right, because it belongs to this world that he lives in. If there were enough like him, the world would be a very safe place to live in, without becoming too dull to be worth living in. Okay, that's that. If you check out my blog, I'm going to have pictures of the books I plan to read in February, though I only review books that are good, or that I think are good. So if they're not quite good, I'll stop reading them and then read something else, so it doesn't always completely tally. Okay, have a good one.